So please welcome to the stage the CEO of Wana Brands, Nancy Whiteman.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. All right, so apparently the most challenging thing is the clicker. I'm going to be talking today about partnerships. And I think that's a timely discussion especially for CannaTech, because it seems like most of the people that I've met here are here to form partnerships or collaborations. And a lot of people have asked me why Wana has been so successful. And I would say that a lot of it is due to our partnerships and how we have structured the company. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about some of my hard-earned lesson in partnerships and collaborations, just to give you a sense of what I consider to be some best practices. So let me start out by talking about what do I mean when I talk about a partnership. For me, a partnership is an alliance between two companies or organizations where there's really mutual benefit for both of them, where it's clear to both parties that we can reach our goals together better than we can reach them separately. I always go into them intending them to be relatively long-term, and I look for win-win partnerships. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that today. Oh, it worked. Awesome. Let me talk a little bit about the types of partnerships that we enter into. And I think at any point in time, we probably have at least 20 partnerships in place. And they fall into several different categories. The first I would characterize as supply chain partnerships. And these can be, for example, we have a primary partnership with a grower. We have a primary partnership with an extraction company. We have a primary relationship with a packaging company, and we have a primary relationship with a supplier of our vape hardware. Why are these not vendors, you might wonder? These sound like vendors. Well, they're not vendors because they're actually so strategically important to our company that we do business planning together. We actually sit down and we say, here's what we're projecting for the next 4 to 6 months. Can you support it? What do we need to do together? So there's a level of planning and interconnectedness between the two businesses that really elevate it from a vendor relationship to a partnership. Secondly, we have a lot of technology partnerships. In fact, one of them is with an Israeli company, CannaTech, right here, who we have partnered with. We license their IP for an extended release technology that we use in our capsules in the United States. We also have a variety of other partnerships. We have a partnership with a terpene company. Again, not a vendor. They've created proprietary terpene blends just for us. So that elevates it. We have a partnership with some quick onset technologists as well. And then we have a whole range of marketing technology that we have partnerships around. And then the last category is the partnerships that we have. Most of you know, I think you've heard, did you know that marijuana is actually federally illegal in the United States? It's true. So we have to go state by state. So we have partnerships in many states. We are based in Colorado, where our manufacturing facility is, but then we have partnerships right now in 5 other states. We're launching in 3 more. We'll probably have about 12 states on board by the beginning of 2020. And most of those are done through partnerships, where the partner either does manufacturing and sales and marketing for us, or they just do contract manufacturing. But these are all different types of partnerships that we have. As the next slide shows, partnerships take a lot of different forms. And I think of partnerships a lot in terms of exclusivity, and related to exclusivity is complexity, right? So if you kind of look from the bottom going up, at the very bottom, sort of the simplest are vendor agreements. Just up from that are sort of those supply chain partnerships that I was talking about. Contract manufacturing, licensing, JVs, and mergers and acquisitions all the way at the top. And what we see is that there is for the amount of exclusivity that you get, there's an increasing amount of complexity, right? So I'm going to be talking about some of that too. So we have built Wana Brands around a lot of partnering. And sometimes people say to me, well, why don't you just do it yourself? And I say, why don't you just do it yourself? No, I don't say that. I want to talk about some of the advantages of partnership versus trying to do it on your own. So one of the big advantages of partnership, particularly what we're doing on the state-by-state level, is that it gives us a lot of speed to market. It would be very hard for us to ramp to 12 markets in the United States if we were building out facilities in all of those markets. It would be expensive and slow. So this is a way to get us to market rather quickly. It's also a way for our partners to get to market rather quickly. So they don't have to figure out how to make the world's best gummy. We've already done that for them. We've built the brand. We've done all the IP development, all the SOP development. It gives us access to markets that we would otherwise not be able to access easily. And in this situation, I'm thinking about we're in the process of choosing a Canadian partner. And our expectation is that our Canadian partner will bring us into many global relationships that we would have a hard time accessing on our own. It also enables us to find people who are best in class at what they do. And that's really important. I'm going to give a shout out to my colleague, Mike, who's here, our Director of Innovation. When we decided, for example, that we wanted to add a quick onset technology to our portfolio, he vetted probably 6 or 7 quick onset technology companies. By the way, we're still looking for one that works well for edibles. And we could find the person who is best in class. Now, even if we had wanted to staff up with 10 PhDs, for example, the industry is changing so rapidly, and things are evolving so quickly, and PhDs are so very specific in their deep knowledge that there's no way that we could cover off on all the exciting things that are happening. So partnerships lets us pick and choose the best people to work with. And they have a proven track record. We can already see what they can do, as opposed to hoping that we're going to be able to do it well ourselves. And obviously, it's less expensive. There's less CapEx involved in it. But, you know, everything has 2 sides, right? So what are the downsides? Obviously, when you're partnering, there's a loss of control. You're not the people who are dictating the specs of everything that you're doing. There's also a loss of margin, right? You've got to share it with your partner. And finally, there's something I've loosely termed partnership problems, which range from everything from minor annoyances to out-and-out litigious situations, and we've run the gamut on all of those. But there really are reasons sometimes you want to go it alone. And I would say that some of the advantages of that is if it's really core to your business, if it's a central part of your business, it gives you clear IP ownership. It's yours, and it's a fundamental part of your business. It gives you complete control over the final product. Obviously, it gives you the best margins because you control it and it's yours, and it increases the company value. It also has its disadvantages, which are sort of the flip side of the partnership advantages. You can have limited market access if you're waiting to do everything on your own. Obviously, it's slower speed to market. You might have limited innovation pathways. That goes back to you can't internally probably cover off on every technology that you'd want, and it's expensive. So you have to think strategically about when partnering makes sense versus building it internally. Now, assuming that you've decided on a partnership, now I'm going to start talking about some of the best practices in partnership. There's basically 4 steps. Finding and vetting partners, which is very time-consuming. Getting your legal agreements finalized, onboarding and launching, and then ongoing support and maintenance of those relationships. So I'm going to talk about each of those. Let's talk about finding and vetting partners first. First of all, you need to be very clear on what capabilities you're looking for and what kind of structure you're looking for. I can't overstate how much time can be chewed up in this part of the process. So the more clarity you bring to the process, the better. We've heard a number of people talking about the importance of networking in this industry. Networking is, I don't want to say it's everything, but it's a lot. You have to be constantly building your network, and then you have to go beyond your own network. So when you know that you're trying to work in a particular field, you start with the people you know, but then you go to conferences like this, you talk to as many people as you can, you really try to find the best people who you can work with as opposed to the first people you happen to come across or the people who you already know. I like to have a robust set of decision-making criteria. Against what am I vetting prospective partners? That's really important too. Here's a mistake that I made early on. Don't be afraid to ask people about their funding. I can't tell you the number of conversations that I had with people, and it was very kumbaya, and we were all happy and excited. And then at some point, it became clear that they didn't really have the funding to do what they needed to do. So get that out of the way quickly. Here's another little tip. Of course, everybody knows to talk to references, but what I try to do is to find the people who they're working with who they haven't given as references, and I try to talk to those people, because often they have a different story, and there may be a reason why they were not given as a reference. That's been a great, interesting source of information. Before you even get to negotiating the agreement, here's some other things that I think are super important in partnerships. And number one being number one for a reason, look for compatible values and goals. I can almost guarantee you that if you're not starting there, you're not going to have a successful partnership. You have to be aligned in terms of your values. Find an attorney who knows the lay of the land, whether it's knows the regulations of the country, is an expert in a given subject matter, et cetera. These are complex things to put together. You need somebody who really knows what they're doing. I like to exchange agreement templates relatively early in the process, because if there are things within your agreement that are non-starters for your partner, you might as well find that out quickly. And I would also say, lean into the conflict a little bit. You learn a tremendous amount about people when there's an area that you don't agree on. You see how they behave with you, you see how differences of opinion are handled. Gives you a ton of information. Here's another one that might seem counterintuitive, and I don't mean on your first date, but start talking about money and terms early. If you're not even in the same ballpark with one another, find that out quickly. It's not worth anybody's time to continue if you're really not even close. And in general, I like to talk about the hard stuff first. If you can't talk about the hard stuff when you're essentially both on your best behavior and courting each other, the chances that you're going to be able to talk about it when the inevitable problems come up as the partnership is implemented are pretty low. So this is Nancy's list of what good partners don't do. Okay, they don't try to bully or intimidate the other party. They don't pull rank on the basis of size or power differential. And we've been on both sides of this. Sometimes we're the 800-pound gorilla, and sometimes we're the tiny little fish, right? So I know what it feels like on both sides. They don't attempt to win at the expense of the other party. Good, long-term, strong partnerships are built on the premise that both sides have to win. They don't exhibit a lack of transparency or integrity. Go running in the other direction if you see any signs of that. They don't dismiss valid concerns. I always get a big red flag when people say, we don't need to worry about that. I'll decide whether we need to worry about that. And they certainly don't pressure prospective partners to rush into a decision. So if any of those things are happening, consider them to be information for you in terms of partnerships. A few other little miscellaneous tips from my experience. Watch early behavior very carefully. What you see is what you're going to get. If you're talking to a prospective partner and it takes them a week to return your phone calls, or they're dismissive or rude to your staff people or people in your organization, or they will only talk to you as the senior person in the company, these are really important signs that this is probably not going to be a good long-term partner for you. And my cardinal rule, also known as the life is too short rule, never do business with anybody you don't like or trust. And my personal litmus test on this one is I think, would I want to have dinner with this person? If I can't even imagine having dinner with them, then I probably don't want to enter into a long-term partnership with them. Okay, so finally we got to the agreement. I would say take your time. These things are complicated. It does get easier over time as you have more of these in place and you've got a basic structure in place. Set realistic timeframes and expectations. This is really important. Mistakes that we made early on. We somehow thought that things would magically happen as soon as the agreement was inked, and it really oftentimes is more complex than that. Clearly articulate your partner's scope of authority and your own responsibilities. The more you can do this, the better, right? You can always decide not to follow the letter of the law of what's in the agreement, But if it's not in the agreement and there's a problem, you have a problem. Define clear success metrics. How do you know whether this is going to be a successful partnership or not? And sometimes that actually belongs right in the agreement. Other times it's just a discussion. I would say the next one is really, really key. Anticipate the future. So in the United States, I think we all think that at some point in the relatively near future, you get to define what that is, we probably are going to have legalization at the federal level. So you have to be looking at your partnership agreements through that lens. What is that going to mean? Are you going to have to unwind things? Are things going to have to change? You need to be thinking several steps ahead of where you are today to structure your agreements. And then my last one is give yourself an out, or better still, 2 or 3, right? Because even though we all go in with wonderful expectations and high hopes, things don't always work out. You need to know how this can get unwound without undue stress and trauma to both parties. Okay, finally, we're up to onboarding and launching. I really recommend developing a very detailed launch plan where everything is spelled out. Who does what the timeframes are on it, et cetera. For us, where we are licensing our IP to other parties, we don't assume that our recipes and our SOPs are going to translate exactly from market to market, so we leave ourselves a lot of time to make the adjustments we need there. We spend a lot of time trying to understand local market differences and localizing our go-to-market strategies. We assign dedicated resources to onboarding and ongoing training and support. This is a key problem that I see a lot of people having in partnerships, is that they expect the people who are running the business on a day-to-day basis to also be handling the partnerships. And usually that doesn't work out very well. And stay very close during the launch to problem solve and fine-tune. Finally, ongoing support and maintenance. Identify clear contacts and communication plans. We have weekly calls with our partners in other states. Everybody needs to know who the go-to person is for things. This is a huge one for me. Encourage transparency and shared problem solving. I would even go beyond encourage. I would make it an expectation of the relationship. I always say to partners and prospective partners, we don't expect things to go perfectly. We expect problems, but we also expect you to be transparent about what they are so that we can work together to solve them. When we find somebody is sweeping things under the rug, to avoid talking about things that aren't going well, that's when I start to personally get very concerned. And related to that, set up auditable financial controls. Develop and implement robust quality assurance systems, particularly for a brand like ours. If we don't have a way of auditing whether people are making our products to our specifications, that is just a recipe, no pun intended, for things being inconsistent from market to market, which is the last thing that we want. And then finally, remain involved in a very active way to provide support and advice. So those are my 15 minutes of hard-learned lessons on partnerships. We are here to meet with people who are interested in partnering in the health and wellness space and are doing interesting things. So I hope that you'll come and find me if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Nancy Whiteman.